let's take a look before anything at the tail of the tape. All right, so Tampa Bay, Green Bay. We have the number one offense in the NFL according to DVOA in the Green Bay Packers. They have been very steady, very, very consistent. They faced their worst game. I know you've heard it many times of the season. They only scored 10 points. They were blown out 38-10 in the Week 6 matchup, right? Blown the F out, okay? And this was their worst game by far, playing Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. Again, how much does that matter? I truly don't know until we see it again on the field. But they were the number one offense for a reason, because I think they were the most consistent offense. They were one of the more balanced offenses in the league. And of course, they have the MVP. Now, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay has been a really good offense, but kind of in spurts, especially at the end of this season. They are really, really good. Now, the Saints game wasn't their best effort, and I think some people are going to hang their hats on that. We're going to talk about why that's not important to this game in just a second. But they truly are an elite offense that you should not sleep on because of their playmakers, their explosive ability, and just like Green Bay, they are very balanced. Defensively, Green Bay has been a complementary defense. They take the football away at a decent rate. They sack quarterbacks when they have to. You know, they come up big. I would kind of compare them to the Chiefs defense in the way that they make plays at the end of games to close games out. They're good versus the pass. They have their weaknesses versus the run. They have clear deficiencies, but they also have many playmakers that make up for it. Their secondary is their strength. Their front can be had in certain situations, but they have, of course, Darius Smith, Kenny Clark. Rashawn Gary had a big game last game. Tampa Bay had one of their best efforts a week ago, ranking number 5 this year, with Todd Bowles being one of the best coordinators in football. They have the best linebacker duo in the league, arguably the best front 7 in football all around, from pass rush to run stuffing ability, and a secondary that's young, unheralded, but pretty talented. Now, in terms of point differential, they're fairly the same, 3 points off. This is during the regular season, of course. And turnover differential, they're basically the same team. So, this game could be determined on the surface by the team that wins the turnover battle, of course. I think both of these games, when you look at an AFC and NFC championship, whoever turns the ball over more is more likely to lose. That's just simple mathematics, simple football. We know this, right? Simple football, if you turn the ball over, you're likely to lose. Both of these teams have been good at protecting the ball, especially lately. And I would say Tampa has a significant advantage in, at least the stats, in taking the ball away from the other team. But what throws a wrench into that is that Packers are at home. Packers have the home field. They know the environment, the weather, the snow a little bit better than Tampa, even though Tampa is the feistier defense that they're good at legitimately taking the ball away from the other team because they're opportunistic. They create pressure. They create strip fumbles. They create all this stuff on their own. It's not just an environment or just a factor because they're playing a bad offense. That is what they do, and they've been doing it all year. So now specifically to the NFC Championship game. These are the headlines and the notes. Obviously, we know there could be weather. It's Lambeau Field. Now, how do the Buccaneers handle the cold? And I'm really intrigued specifically offensively how Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, and Byron Leftwich approach their attack of the Packers defense, considering there might be precipitation and there might be some snow. They haven't had to deal with, I don't think, rain all year, and they certainly have not had to deal with snow. The Packers have as of recently, and they are very good at playing in it. Now, Tom Brady is excellent in cold weather. We know this. He has won playoff games in the snow. He has won big games in cold weather. But how will the rest of the team play? Who is used to playing in that weather? That's an interesting question. Now, I looked down the roster. A few guys come to mind that I think are fine with this weather. That's Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown if he plays, Cameron Brate played in a very cold climate in college, so at least he knows what to expect. Same as Tristan Wirfs, a couple of the offensive linemen. Defensively, Jason Pierre-Paul playing from the Giants for much of his career. Ndamukong Suh playing in Lambeau multiple times with Detroit. And just Shaq Barrett in Denver. So there are players with experience. Antoine Winfield being from Minnesota. Tyler Johnson being from Minnesota just a season ago. Both have dealt with the elements. So there are players on Tampa that have experience in this weather. Shady McCoy, if he ends up playing. All of those guys have experience in the weather. But as a collective whole, will they be ready to handle the elements? And this, to me, it's all about handling the fundamentals, right? It's all about tackling on defense, being able to tackle, being able to get your footing, right? That's all what it's about on defense. Handling the yards after catch on offense and on defense. That means tackling on defense, and that means extending plays on offense. That means, okay, are we short passing game, and how are we able to create yards after the catch in the snow? Because that can be a big factor if there's plenty of snow on the field. Now, I don't know if it will just be snow coming from the sky and none on the field, if it will just be cold and no snow. I don't know if it will be like a winter wonderland. I don't exactly know. I'm not a weatherman, but I'm just telling you what matters in the snow. And those things are yak, those things are tackling, those things are fundamentals, those things are ball security, those things are kicking game. All of those things, the details matter in the snow. Now, an interesting stat I saw from Tom Brady himself is that he has eliminated 7 MVPs in the playoffs. And in games facing MVPs, he is 7-1 in the playoffs. He only lost to 2013 Peyton Manning on the road in the AFC Championship game. The other games, there's a long list of guys that he eliminated, including Peyton Manning twice, LaDainian Tomlinson, Matt Ryan, and a plethora of them. I can't remember them all. All right, last week, both teams relied on their ground game versus good defenses. I think this is something to note because I think both teams at their core do like to stay balanced offensively, and I feel like whatever team can stay balanced might have the edge, especially within the elements of the snow. If it comes down to which team is not able to run or which team is able to run, that team might gain the advantage in this game. Now, I wanted to research something very, very interesting about Aaron Rodgers. So just thinking about Aaron Rodgers and the fact that this is a rematch, I was thinking okay, so Aaron Rodgers, I'm thinking at his career and I'm thinking, every time Aaron Rodgers is eliminated, it feels like he was eliminated by a team that he lost to in the regular season. So I was like, let's do the research on that. Let's see if the stats prove that. So what I found this morning was his record versus teams that he lost to in the playoffs is 2-7. So Aaron Rodgers, teams that he lost to during the regular season and played in the playoffs, he has beaten those teams twice. I think one of them was the Cowboys and one of them was the Falcons. One of them was in 2010 and one of them was in 2016. Both in the divisional round, I believe. And the rest of the games, he lost. And I think 3 of those are in the NFC Championship. Now, Rodgers in playoff rematches has been slightly better, finishing 5-8, but still below 500. The interesting thing about this is that Aaron Rodgers is 7-0 in games where he beat the team or never played them in the regular season. So Rodgers is undefeated. Rodgers is unbeatable when he doesn't play you in the regular season or if he's already beat you. But if Rodgers has lost to you already, he doesn't tend to fare well in the second game. Now, I wanted to compare that to Tom Brady. So Tom Brady has lost 4 games in the playoffs in which he beat the team that he played in the regular season. So if he beat a team in the regular season, he has lost 4 such games, but he is 10-4 in those matchups. So he's 1-10, lost 4. The teams he lost to were the 2007 Giants, the 2009 Ravens, which he didn't have, was it Welker? Welker in that game, but regardless, still a stat. The 2010 Jets and the 2013 Broncos. I discussed the 2013 Broncos already. And one was in the Super Bowl, one was in the AFC Championship, one was in the wild card, and one was in the divisional round. That's actually funny how that works. So he's 10-4 in those games. Now, let's put that a little bit more in particular to the Bucs and the Packers. What are their records in some games this year? So something that could determine the game for the Bucs, of course, is turnovers. They seem to feed off turnovers, right? The Bucs are 12-1 when they turn it over one or less times. So one or fewer times, they are 12-1. So when the Bucs play a clean game, they're basically unbeatable. Now, when the Bucs are turning it over and playing poorly, they are 1-4. So if they've turned it over two or more times, they're 1-4. Now that seems to make sense. Turnovers are a big deal to wins and losses, but in particular to the Bucs, because they are so talented, they lose games because they lose games, right? When they win games, it's because they're better. Now, I brought this up last week. When the Bucs score 25 plus points, they are 13-0. So if you think this game's going to be high scoring, that favors Tampa Bay. Every game the Bucs have lost, they have failed to score more than 24. If they do not score more than 24, they're going to lose this game. Tampa Bay. They are 0-5. All three of the Packers' losses, I also brought this up last week, was when the other team was able to run the ball. They ran for 140 plus rushing yards in those games. Every loss the Packers have had this year is because they couldn't stop the run. Okay? So those are some key headlines, stats that I thought were very interesting for you to kind of think about. Whatever you want to do with them, you can do with them. They're just fun stats that I thought I'd throw out there. Now, let's get to the injury reports. So for Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown is questionable. He is day-to-day. He did not practice on Wednesday. He was the only player for Tampa to not practice. He is day-to-day. I expect him to play, but probably in limited capacity. Now, the big name is Vita Vea. Vita Vea, literally and figuratively, is a big name. He practiced on Wednesday for the first time, and they are trying to get him to play on Sunday. Vita Vea, if you guys do not know, is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. In my opinion, he is the best nose tackle in the NFL, and he ranked as the number 2 PFF interior defensive lineman through the first 6 weeks. He also ranked 3rd in pass rushing grade. So he's not just a run stuffer. A lot of people think because he's so big, he's just a run stuffer. No, he's also an excellent pass rusher because of his power. He only ranked below Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. So Vita Vea, if he's able to play, is a game changer. He takes this defense from good to excellent. Now, the rest of the injury report, 7 guys limited. The list included like JPP taking off time like he always does every week. And Ronald Jones looks to be okay. He talked about how he'll be ready to play this Sunday. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, limited, not fully participating in practice. Green Bay, 10 guys limited, but I would expect all of them to play. You have the linebacker, Barnes, a lot of key players, but they should all play. Barnes, the linebacker, their number 1 linebacker. Crosby, their kicker, which I thought was interesting. Dillon and Williams, their running backs. Kingsley, Lazard, Lewis, Zadarius Smith, Connor's favorite player, St. Brown, and Wagner, their right tackle. So all those players were limited, but they should all be good to go, I think. Now, those are the injury reports. Let's go to the Bucs offense versus the Packers defense. So I always like to look at previous matchups between the coach and the coordinator. Tom Brady has won 8 straight games against Mike Pettin. He has 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in those 8 games. Pettin was the defensive coordinator in the AFC East from 2009 to 2013 with the Bills and the Jets. He worked under Rex Ryan. So keep that in mind. Brady has a lot of recognition of Pettin's defenses, schemes, blitzes, and coverages, but Pettin also knows a lot about Tom Brady. The last time they played was earlier this season, but the time before that was in 2018 when he was still the Packers defensive coordinator. The Patriots won that game with Tom Brady. Something that I think is very key to the Buccaneers on both sides of the football is their toughness and their size, specifically their size. The Bucs on offense, I think, can use their big offensive line to help them, especially if this game becomes a snow game, because they are a lot bigger than Green Bay on both sides of the ball. I think that the Bucs in this game, like they did in the first game, need to control time of possession. And using that offensive line to win matchups in the running game and the passing game is crucial. So what I expect Tampa Bay to do is they are going to run, I think, a lot of 12 personnel. 12 personnel is 2 receivers and 2 tight ends. So that's Gronk and Brate, probably Godwin and Evans. I think that's the best way you can attack Green Bay, because Green Bay is a small defense. They like to play a lot of secondary players, and it puts them in a bind, because if you force them to put big players on the field, those are their worst players. So if you force Green Bay to put an extra linebacker, a third linebacker, an extra defensive lineman, those guys are worse than their corners and their safeties. That's just the way the team is built. So Tampa could really feed off of Gronk, Cameron Brate as both blockers and receivers, as well as Leonard Fournette, which we saw last week as a receiver out of the backfield. The big matchup on the outside, of course, is Alexander versus Evans. I think Alexander, you favor him in that matchup, just as you would Lattimore and Evans. I think Alexander and Lattimore are fairly similar corners. They're built kind of similarly, and I think Alexander will probably win a majority of those snaps. So I don't feel Evans is going to be the most involved in this game. Now, the thing with Tampa or with Green Bay as opposed to New Orleans is New Orleans played a lot more man coverage than Green Bay does. Green Bay tends to play a lot more zone, specifically cover 3 zone. So that opens up Evans to not necessarily get shut down, because zone, you never know. The guy could still be open depending on where the corner is, as opposed to Lattimore and the Saints playing a lot of man press, 2 deep coverage, and kind of allowing their defensive line to take away the run. This is a big difference between Green Bay and New Orleans. So Green Bay can't really just play the way the Saints played, which was a lot of 2 deep, underneath man coverage, and then just let their D-line kind of win the matchups in the running game. Now, Tampa Bay was able to run the ball specifically in the second half, which was why they moved the ball in the second half efficiently. And they were able to sprinkle in the pass. They kind of took the ball out of Brady's hands in that game, because they figured the way we're going to win is through our defense and our running game. Now, in this game, Green Bay's defense isn't built that way. They're in a bind, like I said, because I don't think they're good enough up front that they can stop the run while trying to stop the pass. So what New Orleans did to Tampa, and why they're such a good matchup for Tampa, is because they are one of the few teams that on both lines of scrimmage can actually both block and actually win the matchup on their defensive line, specifically with their ability to pass rush with 4 and their ability to stop the run with just 4 or 5, and having an empty box, so to speak, having a limited players in the box. So what New Orleans said was, we're going to not put that many players to stop the run. We're going to let you run with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and we're going to rely on Cameron Jordan and these defensive linemen to win their matchups and stop the run. That backfired on them, because Tampa was still able to run the ball, but it was the most effective strategy. Because if New Orleans was to say, we're going to put all these guys in the box and just match up outside without safety help, we're going to get burnt by Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So what the Packers have to choose is times to stop the run and put their eggs in that basket, and times to defend the pass. And most likely Green Bay loves to play towards defending the pass. They like to take the big play away, which I think will mean that the Bucs will be able to run the ball very successfully, the same way that they did in the first game. Now, what that could do is, if Green Bay becomes in a bind, we can't stop the run, they're running for 4 or 5 yards a clip, then that's going to open up play action to the Gronk, to Brate, to Godwin, to Evans, and that's where I think the Packers are going to really have a tough time stopping this offense. Another key to this game and stopping Tom Brady, as we know, is pressure. And I think you would be surprised to understand that Green Bay has been better as of late pressuring quarterbacks. But overall, the course of the season, they haven't been great. They ranked 26th in pressure percentage and 29th in quarterback knockdown percentage. So they're not great at getting after quarterbacks unless they blitz. And we know that they can't really match up with Tampa if they blitz, other than Alexander. I feel like they lose those matchups on the outside. I think a key for Green Bay will be when they get Tampa in those situations, Kenny Clark needs to dominate this game inside. He needs to push the pocket, he needs to win his matchup, and he needs to be able to get after Tom Brady. The same can be said with Za'Darius Smith on stunts and inside pressure. I think they're going to line him up inside and try to get him to push the pocket that way. Because we know that Tom Brady's not really affected by edge pressure. He's affected by interior pressure. Now, the best players on Green Bay are on the edge, but they do tend to line up Za'Darius Smith in the inside. Now, why I am confident in Tampa Bay's ability to run the ball, it speaks to where they run the ball as well. Now, Tampa Bay's run offense is very good in the middle of, running the ball between the center and the guard. They rank in the top 7. To the right tackle, Tristan Wirfs, they rank in the top 10, and to the right end, they rank 9th. Green Bay's defensive line is weak up the middle, 22nd in yards per carry allowed. Right end, they're 17th. Right tackle, they're 17th. So Tampa Bay across the board has an advantage in the running game, and I think they have matchups they can exploit in the passing game through their tight ends, running backs, and probably slot and a secondary receivers. Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Chris Godwin. The only advantage I would necessarily give to Green Bay is on probably more than not third and longs and Alexander on Evans. Other than that, the Bucs match up extremely well offensively versus Green Bay's defense. On the flip side, this is going to be an awesome matchup because we saw what happened the first time. Tampa was all over him, blitzed him from the left, the right, the middle. Aaron Rodgers had no answers. So what's going to happen on the flip side of the football? The Bucs, the thing about them is they're a team that feeds off momentum. So it's going to be really interesting to see their confidence heading into this game after dominating New Orleans offense and kind of getting the monkey off their back. How does that affect this game? Is Devin White just all over the place? Can you see the energy from Tampa's defense early in this game? Because that is going to be key to them early in this game. Because I think if the Packers offense is able to move the ball, get rhythm, get pace, they're most likely going to win. But if the Bucs defense comes out just flying around and they're high-fiving each other and they're fist pumping and all that stuff, like Devin White and Sue is chirping Rodgers, then the Bucs are going to win. It's really that simple. Now, when you look at Tampa Bay's defense, they are extremely physical. They are tough. They're kind of old school, and they are very fast at the second level. The reason Green Bay had such a difficult time last time was because of Tampa Bay's linebackers. The speed of Devin White and Levante David was just overwhelming. They were tackling, behind the line of scrimmage. The Packers love to run outside zone. That they were going for no yards, negative yards, 0 yards. Aaron Jones had 12 carries for 15 yards, something to that degree. And Devin White and Levante David were just shooting gaps and making plays. And that is concerning because I think the bread and butter of Green Bay's offense is the ability to run that football and the ability for LaFleur to have so many ties to the way that they run it to their play action game. And that's where Aaron Rodgers hits those big plays over the top. So I really look at this matchup, especially if Vita Vea is there, and I just don't think Green Bay can run the ball versus Tampa's defense because nobody can, guys. It's not just Green Bay. Nobody can. The only team I saw was Dalvin Cook for half a game, and that was it. And that's huge because I think a lot of people are talking about Green Bay just absolutely eating up the Rams, and a lot of that had to do with their running game, right? They carried the ball 32 times, their running backs, versus the Rams, and they had 4 5-yard carries. And that's where Green Bay was able to wear out the Rams defense and eventually beat them down the field with Allen Lazard over the top. The Packers ran for 188 yards versus LA. And again, that's a huge reason they were able to beat such a good defense along with Aaron Donald being hurt, right? Tampa Bay, just look across the board. They have no weaknesses. Like somebody earlier this week asked me, where do you run on Tampa? And I was like, I don't know. Their adjusted line yards is first. On the left side, they are second. On the left tackle, they are sixth. In the middle to the guard, in the middle, they are first. The right tackle, they are third. The only place that they're average is to the right end. So I guess that's where you could run it. But again, if Vita Vea is there, they got McClendon, Sue. They got big people in the middle of the field too, Golston. And then, of course, they have Shaq and JPP on the outside with those super fast linebackers. So the way that I see Tampa playing Green Bay is I think on early downs, they are really going to play soft I should restate that. I think what they're going to do is not play soft in coverage. I think what they're going to do is play two deep looks. I don't think they are going to allow Green Bay to play action them to death on early downs. Because I think Tampa is one of the few teams that believes that their front, without adding extra people to the box, can stop Green Bay. And they're not going to let Aaron Rodgers have the big playoff play action early. That's probably what I think is going to happen. I think Tampa Bay is going to play a lot of two-man. I think they're going to have a double on Adams a lot of the time. And I think they're going to play a lot like they did versus the Saints, just with safeties back as opposed to in the box. The thing is, the Saints try to run the ball. The Saints are a better running team than Green Bay. They could not run the ball because there was extra guys in the box, because Drew Brees allows you to have extra guys in the box because he can't throw deep. But with Aaron Rodgers, you need to respect the deep ball. So you need to back off your safeties, but play press man underneath, because that's what the Bucs do well. And I think that is in line with what Aaron Rodgers has done this year. A little bit more on that in a second. So basically the philosophy for Tampa and all teams that play Aaron Rodgers is you cannot beat Aaron Rodgers. You have to beat everyone around Aaron Rodgers. You have to beat the team, the scheme, not Aaron Rodgers, right? It's the same with Tom Brady or any great quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, same thing. Now, when you're on Green Bay, the best way to attack Tampa, I've said this repeatedly week after week after week, is the LA Ram game plan, which was spread them out, attack them underneath, try to get the ball out quickly. Try to spread them out. Try to get their fourth corner on the field. Try to get Ross Cockrell on the field, right? It's the exact opposite of the way that you attack the Packers defense, right? With the Packers defense, you want to go bigger. But with the Bucs defense, you want to go smaller. You want to do less running, more dinking and dunking underneath, and you want to get the ball out of your hands quickly. Now, where it's going to be interesting to see is, okay, does Bowles let that happen, right? Does Bowles sit back in soft zone and say, Aaron, we're not going to give up the big play like the Rams did? Or are they going to play similarly to the way they played versus the Saints, which is man coverage? We're going to try to bump you off the line. We're going to try to take your timing away, and it's up to your guys to win on the outside. That is going to be very interesting to see what Todd Bowles does there, because I think with the four-man rush, the Bucs are a lot more. Their defense is designed a lot better to pass rush Aaron Rodgers than the Rams, because the Rams defense is all about their interior pass rush, but the Packers have a great interior line. So they were able to kind of stop that, right? They were able to hold that, especially with Aaron Donald playing like basically not at his level and not playing much. The Rams weren't able to get any rush with a four-man rush or a three-man rush. With Tampa, their best players on their pass rushers are their edge guys, JPP and Shaq, and they overwhelmed the Packers the first time. And this is the first true game where the loss of David Bakhtiari might end up hurting the Packers because of that matchup. But again, that all depends if the Bucs stop the run. And the way that I put it is, or the way that the Packers approach first and second down. If the Packers approach first and second down and we're going to play our game, we're going to run the ball, they're going to lose. If the Packers come out on first down and second down, get Rodgers in 5 wide or get Rodgers in spread, and they try to attack matchups underneath versus man or zone, and they're not running the ball, and they're not setting themselves up for third and long, for second and long, then that's where they can win this game and move the football effectively. It all comes down to Matt LaFleur's game plan, right? And it comes down to Tampa's ability to disrupt this offense. So I went in depth and I looked, okay, what's the difference between Aaron Rodgers last year and this offense last year and Aaron Rodgers this year, right? So the key to Aaron Rodgers' difference in success this year, why he's the MVP this year and not last year, even though he's physically the same, what's the difference? It's increased rhythm. It's increased quick throws. It's easy completions. So I looked at the stats. So the intended air yards of Aaron Rodgers is down. Intended air yards, how far you throw the ball down the field, is down by a full yard from the last 2 seasons, 2018 and 2019. It is now 7.7 yards compared to 8.8 yards. The completed air yards is down to 5.4. Had to make sure I got the right number. And his yards after catch, this is an interesting stat. His yards after catch is up to 6.1 per completion. The Green Bay Packers have led the NFL in 2020 in yards after catch because they throw the ball hot a lot. They throw the ball quick a lot. So Rodgers, a lot like Drew Brees, actually has more yards than intended air yards for the first time in his career. That is the difference between Aaron Rodgers this year and Aaron Rodgers last year. Aaron Rodgers last year was holding on to the ball, looking down the field a lot, and they hadn't developed their quick game. They hadn't developed their short game. This year, they're a lot more Drew Brees, right? They're a lot more throw the ball quick, screens, slants, underneath stuff to the back. Rodgers is making very quick decisions. Therefore, he's protecting his offensive line and he's not getting sacked as much, right? He's not getting pressured as much. His pressure is down 7% from a year ago. His sacks are down 16, 36 to 20, although he has basically an identical offensive line. His yards per completion is at 3.9, guys, and his intended air yards per attempt is 7.7, which is along the same as Minshew and Sam Darnold, okay? So Rodgers actually, the myth is that Rodgers is a downfield passer. Now, Rodgers can do that and has done that early in his career. That's where they made their hay. That's where Rodgers was amazing. But this year, Aaron Rodgers is Drew Breesian. Now, at a much better level because he can attack you down the field. But that's their core of their passing game, is throwing the ball underneath. So, does Tampa Bay play man press coverage like they did to Drew Brees with 2-man over top? That's what I think they'll do. I think they'll play a lot of 2-man deep, cover 2 man, and I think they'll play, and I think they'll blitz when they have the opportunity in certain situations. But I think that Tampa early in the game is going to say, let's see how our 4-man rush does, especially if Vita Vea's in the game, because we believe our edge guys can pressure you with bad tackles, right? Wagner and Turner. And to me, this is where the Rams went wrong by attacking the Packers. The Rams went wrong in playing soft coverage. They did not play aggressive physical coverage, and they allowed Rodgers to get the ball out quick, not allowing their defensive line enough time to get to the quarterback. So, to me, that is the key, is how do the Bucs play their coverage? Do they allow enough time for their blitzes, their stunts, and their playmakers up front to get to Rodgers? If they do not play underneath, I think Rodgers will have success with the quick game. So that is a huge thing to me. And if Tampa does have the time to get the quarterback, they will, right? They're 5th in quarterback knockdown percentage. They're 3rd in pressure percentage. And we saw they had problems with their blitz early in the game or early in the season. And I think a lot of people are saying this game's going to be totally different. This is where I think it's the same. I don't think you can say that we are totally different in our protection when your players are just worse than Tampa's players. Like, Turner is just worse than Shaq Barrett. Like, that's just the case. If he's one-on-one, he is going to lose more often than he's going to win. Like, that's just the case. So it's up to the coverage of Tampa to allow their front to get there. Now for Green Bay, I think they should be using, again, a lot of quick throws. But I think also 2 players are going to be important. 3 players, really. I think Allen Lazard is going to be very important. He's probably going to see a lot of Sean Murphy bunting. And I think he could be used a lot like Cooper Kupp was used. He's not as quick as Cooper Kupp, but I think he can win that matchup running some options and stuff like that from the slot. You could put Devontae Adams in the slot, make it challenging for Carlton Davis or for them to double him and to get him, running those routes to the inside or the outside underneath to win quickly versus man if that's what they choose to do. I think Jamel Dean and Valdez-Scantling is pretty much a wash. They're basically the same player that play 2 different positions. Like, Dean is super fast and super long, and Scantling is super fast and super tall. Like, they're the same player. So, that's like an identical matchup. But I think the matchups on the outside, Davis has been good versus route running receivers. But this is a different level, right? This is Devontae Adams we're talking about. So I believe if the Bucs don't double team him, you're going to lose. If you let Rodgers go to Adams a lot, you're going to lose. Because if you're the Bucs, you need to say, how do we not lose? And you lose by letting Adams be one-on-one, letting Adams have the matchup. And I think Bowles is smart enough to say, as often as we can, we're going to have 2 bodies near him, or we're going to just force the rest of the receivers to beat us. It's that simple. Final thing here on this side of the ball is I think it's going to be a lot overall. You're going to see some man. You're going to see some zone. You're going to see some disguise blitzes. You're going to see some dropout blitzes. This guy's coming, this guy's going sort of thing. I think you're going to see a lot of guys at the line, and then they're going to back off. Another team that did an excellent job versus Aaron Rodgers, it went way under the radar, but was the Carolina Panthers. And I think that's at least a closer game. I think that game was like week 13, 14, 15 area, where maybe Tampa looks a little bit at what Carolina did to Aaron Rodgers to get pressure, because Carolina sacked him 4 or 5 times in that game and held him under 200 yards. So I think Tampa will mix in a little bit what they did the first time, a little bit what Carolina did, and a little bit of what they do well, which is primarily man coverage. Now, the final thing I want to talk about here is special teams. Both teams suck on special teams, according to DVOA. Right? Tampa was at a huge disadvantage against the Saints on special teams, because the Saints are like the best special teams, or one of the best special teams in the league. The Bucs are 26th and Green Bay's 25th. So special teams probably won't determine this game. The only place I'd say it might is Crosby does have experience kicking in the snow, and Suckup does not, I don't think. So if this game comes down to a game-winning field goal, I'd lean towards Green Bay. Okay? My prediction for this game, summing up everything I've said here, is I'm sticking with my pick. I have seen nothing through my analysis, my thoughts, and my notes. I am going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field 30-23. Sum up my thoughts. I think the Bucs are a very challenging matchup to the Packers, because they are better on both lines of scrimmage. They have more playmakers that challenge the depth of the Packers secondary. They are a team that can beat you in a multitude of ways. Whether that is through a balanced approach, they can play power football, or they can pass the ball. Tom Brady is used to playing in cold weather. And I think the Packers' key to their offense is quick timing, rhythm, and run game. Now go down the list. The Bucs stop the run better than anybody. That is going to be challenging for Green Bay. The Bucs have one of the fastest defenses in the NFL to take away the quick game. And I think they have one of the few defensive lines that can actually get after Aaron Rodgers. So, yes, I understand Green Bay has the better quarterback. Green Bay has the better record. They have the home field. But when you realistically look at the matchups in this game, the better football team is Tampa Bay. The reason I am not 100% on this game, if this game was in Tampa, I would lock this in and bet a lot of money on it. If this game, it's in Lambeau, snow is a huge factor, weather is a huge factor, which always could lead to mistakes by a team that is mistake prone and a team that can cough the ball away, right? I think, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say the Saints were this close, the Saints did this. The Saints are the worst matchup for the Bucs in the NFL. The worst matchup, by far. The Packers are a totally different team. The Bucs got by their worst matchup. The Packers, this might very well be their worst matchup. And if the Packers beat Tampa, I think they win the Super Bowl. I'm going to say that right now. If the Packers beat Tampa, they will win the Super Bowl. If the Bucs beat the Packers, maybe they win the Super Bowl, maybe they do not. But this is a tough game for Green Bay. And I think it comes down to, for Tampa Bay, their ability to possess the ball on offense and their ability to stop the run on defense. So I'm going to go with Tampa to win this game 30-23. Closer game than last time, obviously. So let me know your picks for that game. Let me know what you think on that game.